Well, welcome back to the shop. The metalwork marathon continues. If you recall from when we cleaned this up before, quite a bit of rot kind of down in this bottom lip of the windshield, so we're going to be looking at tackling that today. We'll see what we can do. Had a few ideas to possibly get that patched up. It's kind of a finicky little spot. But anyway, let's get to it. So just a little closer view of the windshield. As you can see, it kind of trapped moisture right down where that little radius is. It's not quite kind of just a simple pinch. It's about a 45, probably about an 1/8 inch. And it kind of runs about halfway down the windshield. This side's pretty good. So something leaked over on this side and kind of rotted out the bottom side as well. This should be pretty straightforward to patch up. It's not really a visible piece. It's kind of tucked. There's a metal or a rubber flange that sits there when the windshield's flipped up. It's that other side that's going to be a little bit finicky. But as I was looking at that, trying to figure out what I needed to do, nobody makes patch panels or anything. I looked around for a separate windshield. I did find one for like a 71, 72, so this is the hole for the windshield wipers. They're up on top, and the other problem was the glass is a different shape. So the early FJs have a different shaped windshield, and the frame I found had a broken glass, and I thought about picking that up. But without the glass, you're kind of down a whole can of worms, because you could relocate the windshield wipers and stuff. Not a big deal, but without the glass, and the glass being a different shape, just kind of a whole problem. And it was a little bit too much to sacrifice it for a patch panel. But as I was looking at things today, I said to myself, that lip looks a little bit familiar. And the reason it looks familiar is I've been working on this hardtop in the back, and it's basically the same lip as the rear doors. Go figure. There's kind of some consistency across the vehicle. And then that got to me thinking. I said to myself, I've got some old doors that aren't really worth repairing. So again, these were the ones off the rig. They were patched once before, so the bottom was cut off. You can see where it was cut off and seamed, patched at one point. That was back in '88. But even after that, they took quite a beating. So it rotted out all around the window on the driver's door. The driver's door actually had a dent in it here. When something bumped into the rear spare tire, it caved that rear door in. You can see a little bit left over here. And then if you look at the passenger door, it's all blown out around the hinges. It's got the start of rot around the windshield or window glass again, kind of by the handle, and blown out on the bottom like the other one. So these doors were never going to get repaired. They'll probably get hung up on the wall just as an interesting piece hanging on the side of the shed. But what I did was took the grinder and did a little bit of organ donor, cut out a strip from this door, which gave me this piece. And interestingly enough, if you lay it on there, it actually is a pretty good faithful match for that radius. So you can see kind of that same shape. And it is just about long enough to do what we need to do. We will have to be a little bit cognizant around this windshield wiper bracket, because it is a doubler in there. Worst case, you can redouble it. And we'll have to choose which side to face out. The radius is the same going both ways, so you can either lay it this way or this way. It'll kind of just depend on which side looks more workable. But all in all, that's actually pretty decent. I didn't have anything that I could break that edge that straight and get it the right dimension and the right distance and the right height and all that jazz. So that was kind of a lucky chance find. So kind of a good little, if you've got some scrap doors, that's a worthwhile piece to pull out of there before you chuck them, if they are truly scrap. and just kind of a good example of using those parts and pieces, recycling as you go. Sometimes you'll get lucky. So I'm going to fiddle with this a little bit and make sure we're good. I am going to have to at least get a clean break around the bottom for this pinch seam. So I'll have to work a little bit there. But I'm at least feeling a little bit better that we can get this seamed in there and have what should amount to a pretty straight visual sight line and a good consistent bead down that fella. Because I was worried a little bit about that. If you can't break that bead, you're going to have a bit of a pickle getting that back. So let's get started. We'll start nibbling away and make sure that that'll fit in, and see if we can get a bead on that fella. So onward. First off, I'm just going to nibble some of this out. It's clearly got to go. Give us some working room. This red wire isn't anything special. It's just there as a fish wire. There's a factory wire in the loom that goes up for the, I believe, the dome light. And rather than trying to fish a new one in there, I just pulled a scrap. So when I come back and have to get the actual dome light lens or wire back up through there, I can just pull it. Anyway, nibble it away. So nibbled out that ridge there basically. I did leave this bottom folded rail. It's actually pretty stable, even with most of it out. It does have the pinch on the backside still, so what I may end up doing is basically cutting this patch short and doing some stitch welding down there. Keep it cool because there's not a lot to work with. But instead of trying to get that fold straight across, I don't have anything that I can pinch that in there and not be in the way of this existing one, and I only have so much of this stuff to work with. So I think I'm going to try that first. Worst case, I do have door number 2 as a donor, but I think we're going to start by trying that. We're going to hit it with the blaster, clean out any crud that's left, and see exactly what we're working with there. If it looks good, then we can nibble kind of up and over, cut a square out, cut some dimensions, and kind of a typical patch. Cut that out to the same dimensions, seam him in. Just got to work around this guy. I feel like that's probably my better course of action, just knowing what I have in the shop and what I have for materials. We'll give it a try. If it doesn't look like it's working out, we can always adjust. It's the name of the game. So let's get her cleaned up and see what we're working with. So got that lip cleaned up pretty good. That'll give me, I can actually tuck some metal back in there, so when I redo the other side, it can ride along that flange. That's probably what's going to be next. Before I start filling that back in, I'm going to nibble out here. I just took a square, measured up about 1 1/16". That should clear the windshield motor plate, but it still gets me kind of back into good metal. So I'm going to nibble that out, give me a nice square patch, at least for this front piece. We'll figure out what we need to do kind of down here, kind of work our way down. If we can at least get this tucked in, that's the majority of it. So I'm going to nibble that guy out. If I could find my die grinder. Chop chop. So, battery died, not sure when, but working away, nibbling this piece out. Got it so it fits into the lip pretty good on this end, and rides kind of down this side, so it got a pretty good start. Got to figure out what I want to do here. I got to nibble this back. I think it's going to be a straight line there, and I'm going to have to try and bend that kind of little bit of a radius in there. So a little bit of fiddly work, but we'll keep moving on forward. Otherwise, this end's looking pretty good. I'm probably going to wait until I tack it in to continue this line over, and I should be able to use like a Christmas tree bit step drill to drill out a matching hole on this end if I know the distance down, and you can kind of make them meet up. Probably easier to do that together than trying to make it a line, so I'm going to wait on that. Otherwise, we're sitting pretty good again, mark to know how far we're down. It's just for the defroster duct, so it's not real critical, but we can get it kind of back where it's supposed to be. But if I tuck him back in there, at least put a mark where my metal starts. I think what we're going to do is nibble it here, get rid of this because it's kind of garbage. Grind that so we got a nice clean flange to work from. Probably go out to this corner, basically, give us a square. And like I say, we'll have to figure out kind of some sort of that, match that bend. Shouldn't be too bad, but we'll figure it out. So that's sitting pretty good. We got a mark there to know where that radius is. We got a mark there to know where that radius is. So we got to connect the dots. Start to fold that back. So we're going to go see if we can make that happen. Back in a bit. So got this patch sitting pretty decent. We may throw this straight edge on it and kind of tack it in place. It is riding kind of up against this lip. Kind of tucked in like it would have been. We'll put the other face back on and it'll get back sandwiched. We'll nibble this out once it's in place, and I got to put a little bit of plug in that corner just to kind of work that weird shape in there. Otherwise, let's get it zapped in. We'll keep zipping away, get that all buzzed in. We'll bring you back when it's time to nibble away a little bit more. Well, back from some welding and grinding, as usual. Not too bad, not perfect, but this is all fairly hidden and tucked behind, so it's not going to it's going to need any body filler or anything. The padded dash sits up here. There's kind of two bolts, and it runs kind of up to the top. And then there's a rubber flange that sits here, and then this faces out. But all in all, back together, nibbled this fella out, got it back to where it needs to be. So sitting pretty good there. This is still loose. I don't know if you can see that. So this pinch is still loose, so we can work that and get that straight. I'm sure it's a little bit off, but at least we got some structure on the back now to work from, and everything's kind of there. We got the lip, so we can flip this guy over, dig out that patch piece and start nibbling away, get that kind of sitting in there, and I think we'll be in good shape. Well, we got her tucked in there pretty close. Needs just a little bit more shaving with the flap disc. A few spots where it's just a little bit tight to get her lined up straight. So we're going to nibble a little bit, and then we'll break out the welder and start tacking her in. Should be able to get it to sit pretty good. That should give us a nice straight line, kind of all the way across, match that radius. So let's get nibbling. Well, ran her through the blaster a little bit, just kind of touch things up. Gonna throw the hinge plates back on, if I can get in there. And then we can dunk her back on the firewall cowling. We're gonna start. There it goes. All in all, not too bad. Came out pretty decent for what I was started with. Wasn't a whole lot to lose giving it a try. Worst case, was always going to kind of keep a hunt up for a better windshield frame. So you didn't really have a whole lot to lose cutting her open. If it didn't work, it was going in the bin. So is what it is. There's a few little pitting here and there. The metal isn't the greatest around the bottom. Didn't want to chase that too hard. You're kind of fighting a little bit of an interesting battle there. But all in all, it came out pretty good. There is a little bit of a wave in my bottom lip here. We'll have to see how that lays out. But otherwise, came out pretty decent for what it was and what we're working with. Be interesting to see how it lays up on the car. Otherwise, bottom's all patched. That came out pretty good, but nobody's ever going to see that. But good to have that all stabilized, solid. We could do a little bit of surface, kind of leveler putty to get that nice and straight if we need to. At least we've got something solid to work on. You know, we're not filling giant rust holes. So let's get that tossed on the body now that we got the hinges on. Oh, I think I got all the sand out of it. Like a beach. Ooh. My armpit's in the way. That side's being cranky. Well, there she is, all tucked back in place. Hinges are on through the rubber gasket underneath just to see how it would sit, and it's good to kind of understand how all that stuff goes back together before you got paint on her. Otherwise, sits back on, hard top's back where it's supposed to go. Everything lining up, lining up to the back. A couple little pinholes here and there they had to touch up with the welder. Minor. There is a little bit of a step here. You can just barely catch it in the shadow. It is kind of a handy way to catch some of those body lines is look at how the shadow drops down with some overhead lights. So you can see there is a little bit of a step there. You probably can't see it on camera, but when you look down it with your eye, you can. Same with here. There is a little bit of a banana. It kind of curves up just a smidge right about here. Pretty minor. I don't know that anybody that doesn't know it's there would catch it. I can see it because I know it's there. Should be able to touch that up a little bit as well, I think. It's not a lot. I don't even think it's a 1/16 of an inch, but it is a little bit of a bow. So just a little bit of stuff that you got to touch up with some leveling compound and a good long sanding block just to get those kind of big flat surfaces and big long angles, square. It's kind of wide. What those are for, and we know we got to do some of that work. So that's coming up shortly. Nice to get this knocked out. We are getting a little bit of flash surface rust on the cowling, so I am going to have to hit that with the blaster. But we are getting pretty close to paint. It's finally warm enough here to do it, and we're getting real close on the body work. Windshield's buttoned up. Doors are good. Top is good. Hard top is good. Rear doors are the last bit, and those patch panels came in today. There's kind of a weird shape on the inside, and there's a place that sells the inner patch panels. So picked up those so we can just do the rears and get them done kind of back to factory. So that'll be really nice. Should be able to do that this weekend, hopefully. And then theoretically should be able to start blowing things apart and getting ready for primer, kind of a heavy build primer and block sanding and getting everything prepped for paint. It's going to be a lot of sanding. So moving from sandblasting to sanding, but name of the game. it'll be nice to get a lot of this stuff covered up. Like I say, the cowling is getting a little bit of flecks of rust starting, which we can hit it with the blaster in the driveway before we paint, so I'm not too worried about that. It's easy to touch it up. Same way we got to do the hood. Hood's got to get blasted, but that shouldn't take too long. But chipping away. Really looking forward to getting paint on it. Rings are actually coming in Monday, so 2 days from now. So piston rings will be in. I think that we'll have all of our parts to do the block. I think I'm going to let that sit and really just focus on hammering out the bodywork, because we got a lot of this metal out bare. The block, you know, you can kind of let it sit and it's not going to hurt anything. Plus, we can put the drivetrain in when all the body's off and getting, you know, curing. So the longer we can get all these body panels painted, sitting in the sunshine and curing before reassembly, the better. So that's going to be the plan. Thanks for riding along. Time to get cleaned up, time for dinner as usual. I don't know if you can hear it, there's a train cruising on by. But made some progress today. Again, thanks for riding along, thanks for watching. Have a good one.